This is another of our series of videos following up our special intuition lockdown article. And I have with me Willie Pelser, one of our asset managers and our economist. Willie, thanks for joining me today. I hope lockdown's treating you well.
Yeah, Robin. It's a totally different concept, but to some extent, I think we potentially geared for it that we can work remotely. The only thing is, yes, one can keep fit and all of those things, but mentally you have to keep fit. I think, as I said to my family as well, you have to do something. You can't sit still for 21 days to go nuts.
Quite. So, yeah. Willie, just maybe talk us through, this world is going to be a very different place. You and I have been chatting offline about some of the stuff that you're seeing. So maybe put your economist's hat on and talk us through some of the effects that you're seeing on a global scale of what's happening.
Yeah, Robin, I think in all of these, the big buzzword we use lately is black swan events that no one saw it coming, type of thing. I think this one, the coronavirus or COVID-19, is definitely one of them that no one saw this coming, and then the speed at what and the rate at what countries, governments, businesses went into almost like a standstill. We call it lockdown. I was saying to someone the other day, it's like someone took the ocean away and now we can't reach each of the continents because everybody is now stuck on a continent. And I think it's exactly that. It's like someone has pulled the rug from underneath us. And yeah, so the speed of how things have happened, the economies have physically locked themselves up, has made or is making this, from a forecast perspective, a very difficult environment. And yeah, as you say, from an economic perspective, one has a lot of history to work on, but again, it remains totally different. I think the one area where we're all going to struggle to make assumptions is around salaries, wages, and then employment numbers. We've seen in the US, suddenly 6 million people are in the queues for some form of assistance. In our own country, we all talk about the lower salaried or the week by week wage type of people. Suddenly there is just no form of income for 21 days. So you go over 2 months. They might have got something at the end of March, but then April is just, you're looking down a tunnel and there is no light because there will physically not be anything in a pocket. So yeah, very, very tricky economic scenarios ahead of us.
So, Willie, just picking up on that, obviously it makes it very, very difficult to forecast, and the market is a forward-looking instrument. How does an economist start to get a handle in this sort of environment to make some form of predictions that he can start to now add value to share prices?
Robin, I think I know the one thing is you always have up to your last data point of something, whether it's a manufacturing data or whether it was car sales or any of those, call it monthly statistics on a global basis, and you apply some form of extrapolation. And the way you do it is you do source all the news that you hear on a daily basis. And in our intuition article, I actually make reference to it, that one must be careful as to what you use, because every Tom, Dick and Harry becomes a forecast connoisseur, an expert, and everybody knows what they're talking about on COVID. And the same on the economic statistics. So for me, I'm sitting with basic assumptions. So this is, use an example, is a lot of people will be unemployed or will not have a salary for 2 or 3 months. So then when I look at consumer statistics in South Africa specifically, we break it down into durable expenditure, semi-durable, food, and then services. And if I look at that, at this point in time, I think, yeah, food statistics and Woolworths has shown us the country went mad in the week in the lead up to the lockdown. So food sales looks impressive, but you have to take it with a pinch of salt, because That spending has happened, and it's now subsistence spending for that matter. I can live with a loaf of bread for a week, but then I have to go to the shop to buy another one. So it will be toned down. Other things is just people are sitting at home. It's not all industries who are at this point in time able to trade. So when you think about salaries and wages, you know you have to make an adjustment. And I think the difficulty here is that those adjustments might surprise you on the negative, in a sense. If there's no salary, there won't be any spending. No one is going to buy a new fridge. They might try and buy us 2 apples instead of 1, that type of thing. So that's what we do all over the world from an economics perspective. And I think the numbers I'm starting to see from quarterly GDPs and annual GDPs is some of them are quite negative. So you almost price in, just from an economic perspective, a worst case scenario. And then we're creatures of hope. Some forecasts are talking we 2 quarters in a dip and then we accelerate up. I just think this time around is a little bit different. We talk in the market about a V-shaped recovery. Personally, I'm leaning more towards a U-shaped environment at this point in time, where you struggle, or economies struggle. They fall into this sort of abyss of nothing is happening, no trade, no spending, no nothing. Then you get the engine slightly rolling, but it takes time to adjust because suddenly the stuff I thought I would have is still in a harbor in China, or the stuff I've exported, the other guy can't pay me because he hasn't received it. So that type of scenario. So I think time is what we have to get accustomed to this time around. It will take time to work through what is happening, and for companies to get through this. One stat we write about it in Intuition is companies trying to withhold paying out cash or paying out dividends because they don't know what's coming, to be able to fund whatever scenario is coming their way. So again, from a forecasting or a numbers perspective, is we must all be careful as to what we cling to, and what we try and use as gospel. I think that is the scenario going forward.
So, Willie, would it be accurate to say that the reason why we saw such an aggressive fall in the market is this inability to really forecast or know what is value in the marketplace? And is that also where we're seeing the massive swings of volatility? As I speak to you, I think Sasol is up 40% on a slightly stronger oil price. Can you talk around the volatility that we're likely to see in this time?
Yeah, I think, Robin, as we're writing Intuition, volatility has become also a new buzzword, and it's become the new norm. You referred to Sasol there, 40%. I remember the days when we looked at it and it felt like 40%. And it's just the unknown nature that we base our forecasts or our analysis on. Now, companies obviously have company fundamental specifics that they work with, but in general, as an asset manager, you first sort of look at the global, or what we call the top-down scenario, as to what's impacting the bigger picture. Now, end of this week, there might be, and I'm using America as an example, there might just be 2 people less in a queue to ask for money, and I tell you the market will take it as a huge positive and it will rally. Or there's an extra 5 people asking, and then the market tanks a little bit. So until in statistics we talk about white noise, and there's just too many moving parts and too many numbers flying out, that one day you think, oh, it's hunky-dory, and back to the coronavirus or the COVID count. You suddenly see 1 less death. The guy still died, sadly, but 1 less death can make the market rally 20%. But then, tomorrow you hear another part of the world, like the US, is going through where some of their statistics are accelerating. So now you hold back your cash. So I think for the next 2-3 months, it's going to be very difficult to gauge anything. And we always say markets love certainty and not uncertainty. And if there's uncertainty, the volatility is rife.
So, Willie, you're not sitting in the position where you think you've missed an opportunity. You're not, as an asset manager, buying madly into this market.
Robin, yeah, from an economist perspective, I always say there's two concepts that you have to look at. The one is what we call fundamentals, and the other one is technicals. Now, fundamentals is what drives an economy. So you get your long-term cycles and your short-term cycles, and we, in principle, in a cycle of downward movement from a global economic perspective as we speak. Then your markets work on the technicals around it. And I'm not talking about technical analysis on the movement of share prices. The technicals of, I've got this bit of information with me, and that's why I buy and sell a share. When those two things meet, whether on the up or the down, you get a huge correction. And I think we're still in that phase of a fundamental down movement and a technical adjustment on markets. I think Michael wrote in one of our last two intuitions about the PE on the foreign market. The markets were overpriced before the virus hit us all, and that's still in a process of unwinding. So, in short, the PEs still need to come lower from that. So, if I can picture it, the two is still working together in a downward move. So, missing an opportunity, I'd rather be safe and say, I'm not calling a bottom to say, no, we haven't seen the bottom, or the bottom is still coming. But in this uncertain time, there will be lots of opportunity to make money work for you for the next, call it 5 years or 10 years. Never chase any market. I think we've seen it on the downward movement in the market. When it started to fall, you were hoping, today is the bottom, and it just extended. So, yeah, I think there's opportunity still to come, and I think the world will be different when we come out of this. The digitization of economies will move forward. Yes, there will still be your old school mining related business and so on, but I think people are going to do business differently going forward. So yes, your traditional stocks might still be running, but then the new things are forming and starting to develop. So I think we will get another blow at the whistle, if I could call it that way, to say let's buy. And if we've missed 10% or 15% up, we're talking investing for the next 10, 15 years and not for tomorrow.
Awesome. So, and for those who are invested, we're seeing companies fall on news that they're not having their rentals paid by their tenants, or they can't trade like a Mr. Price. Your feeling is that we will sort of come out of this, so it makes sense to sit and not give away assets for nothing.
Yeah, Robin, we talk on the market. There's always the saying of buy the rumor, sell the fact, and you can apply it both ways. So the rumor at the moment, which is more factual for that matter, is companies saying we're not going to pay rent to a landlord, or I'm not going to pay the rent for my two kids where they are because suddenly their income has dried up, that type of thing. So we all know at the moment the market is rallying because the share prices have discounted it. But then in 6 months' time, when the companies actually release their statistics or their results, then suddenly you see this huge number of we didn't receive X billions of income type of thing, and then reality sets in again. And I think that's, the markets can get ahead of themselves sometimes, and then when you get the actual statistics, it comes back to sanity for that matter, or the real equilibrium where it should be. So,
and that happens on both the up and the downside, of course.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is we should never be buying or selling if panic mode is on.
Yeah, it's the same on the upside, Robin. At the moment, we're obviously talking the downside because the market has tanked for that matter. But the same applies. We take the US market. You can take Tesla is actually a great example. A few weeks ago, every hairdresser and mechanic in the country, and I'm not talking the trade down. I might become a hairdresser. As you can see, it's taken a lot off here. But the saying in the market is when everybody else wants to buy a share, you need to get out. And we had that example of Tesla. Everybody phoned us in the office almost to say, buy me Tesla, buy me Tesla. And we joked and we said, let's sell. And it turned. And it went up probably about 50-60% suddenly, and then came down in exactly the same format. So yes, and there was panic in a different way. Panic in the sense I've missed out on the run in Tesla, so let me get in. So it goes for both sides of the market.
Awesome. Well, Willie, thanks for giving us some of your time, and keep trying to find the numbers through the mist for Harvard House investors, so that we know what we can ascribe value to the shares. I hope you and your family are safe during lockdown, and I'm sure we'll connect at some point in the future.
Thank you, Rob, and to everybody out there, keep safe, but also keep sane.